vacation, so I'm gonna try to have to speak up. Hopefully, you're able to hear me good. But so today, in just a moment, we're gonna be getting into filtering of the seed line. Okay, but before I get into that, let's go ahead and start off by giving all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahushai, Ba'Hashem, Kodash, Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Ba'Hashem, Kodash. Love honor to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, where the house of David will be born again in this generation. And shalom to the 130 Yasharallah who are out there today in the world, who are turning back to their true heritage and starting to do that which is pleasing to the Lord. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the filtering of the seed line, right? The seed line of Israel, who today the Israelites would be known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? That's who the all this filtering from the history of humanity has resulted in, right? So you Negro, Latino, and Native Americans, you Israelites, are actually a product of selective breeding, okay? Selective coming together. And who has done that? Who has selected our seed line over other people? Well, none other than the Most High, who the world ignorantly calls Jehovah or God, right? Or Adonai. What else do they call his name? They call him Hashem, which is just Yiddish for the name, but whose true Hebrew name is actually Yahweh, right? Which is Hebrew, ancient Hebrew for He is. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually read the beginning of Genesis. Let's get into. Actually, before reading the beginning of Genesis, let's get into Isaiah 25:7. So that says, "And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations." Right? So this is a future prophecy that the Lord would actually reveal the true images, or I'm sorry, the true names, true identity of all the people in the world in the end times, or sometime in the future from the time of Isaiah. Now we understand that that's right now, right? Right now the Lord is removing the covering cast upon all the nations, primarily upon you Israelites, Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and also these wicked Edomites, right? The wicked of the Bible. Now, who are the Edomites? Well, today you would refer to them as the Caucasian race, right? The so-called white man, right? Now that goes for all the Caucasians around the world, right? The Ukrainians fighting the Russians, Edomites, right? You got the French, the Canadian, the American, the South African, what else is there? There's the English, the German, people from Holland, people from all the Switzerland, Sweden, where else? All over, right? Because basically, this is what we're going to be talking about in a bit. The filtering of the seed line within the process of our seed line, the nation of Israel seed line being filtered. You had a lot of moving back and forth, a lot of breeding and mingling of the seed lines, right? Now, how do we know, what seed lines are here in the world, right? You hear about things like the 13 bloodlines of Illuminati and all this stuff, and you know all these things, but that's on the surface it's a bunch of bullshit, man. All the Illuminati, for the most part, all those bloodlines are all Edomites, right? They go back to the house of Esau, right? Hence the Job, Shalom, Zen, Maximus, but all of them go back to the line of Esau, right? Hence why you got Job 9:24 saying that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? That wicked being Esau, right? The nation of Edom, or today would be known as the so-called Caucasian race. Well, let's get into this real quick. Let's read Genesis 10 and 1. And why is that? Because in Genesis 10 and 1 is where we start hearing about the bloodlines of the world, the people. Right now, one thing about the Bible that makes it really hard for people to relate to is that the people in the Bible, the names like the Ishmaelites, the Israelites, the Moabites, the Hagarenes, the Midianites, like nobody knows who those people are today. And why is that? Well, because there's been a covering cast put over all the nations today. Now today, according to the UN, right, there is 197 nations. Just, what is it, like 5 years ago, there used to be 195. Well, the 197 nations which exist today, according to the UN, all go back to the 18 nations, right? Which you can see here on the table of nations, right? You can see it starts with Israel, Edom, Elam, Ashur, Aram, Ishmael, Moab, Ammon, Cush, Mizraim, Put, Canaan, Gomer, Magog, Javan, Ashkenaz, Tarshish, and Kittim, right? Those are the 18 nations which the Bible recognizes today, right? And we're going to get into that starting in verse Genesis 10, right? But here's the thing. This is where Apostle Tahar, Apostle Gabar, Apostle Ramlam, but all the apostles are they've hit the nail on the head, right? To connect the 18 nations of the Bible to the 197 nations of today, you have to actually do a couple of things. One, you have to get into history. You have to understand what is history. That's true. Not every, who is this? Occupy Till I Come says that not every white person would really be considered Caucasian, though. That's true, right? But again, this is that's very simplistic, but it's very true, right? Because it gets deep, right? Because not every white person, skin color wise, would be considered white, right? You go back to the early 1900s when you had Italians come to America, Irish who came to America, Slavic people came to America. They were considered white people. They were considered other nations, right? They were considered other races, right? And that's because back then in those times, people had a better understanding of what a true Caucasian was, right? Well, so that being said, today with the dumbing down of society and Esau wanting to hide himself, he has changed nationality of people into colors, right? You got the white people, the black people, the brown people, the yellow people, and all these different things, right? They try to hide, right? But like the brother said, not every white person would be considered a Caucasian, and that's very true. Because not only within the nation of Edom do you find that melanated skin, right? Or the non-melanated skin, excuse me, but it's also been passed on to all the other nations, even including nations like the nation of Judah, right, or the tribe of Judah, so-called Negroes, right? And this has all happened because of the intermingling, the sleeping with each other, which the Bible commands us not to do. We're not supposed to give our children to the other nations, right? We're not supposed to breed with them. And why is that? Well, because one, the seed line, sticking to the narrative of this lesson, would be mixed in, right? Now, for men to sleep with another woman of another nation, it doesn't really matter, right? Because the thing is, the seed line goes to the father, which we're going to get into in a bit. But if a woman was to marry into another nation, a woman of the nation of Israel, if she was to sleep with, let's say, for example, an Edomite, what would happen is that seed, her child would be the seed of her husband, right? An Edomite. Now, that being said, if the white person that Israelite woman got with was actually an Edomite, his bloodline went back to the nation of Edom, and that baby would be an Edomite. Now, let's say if you go back to that father's bloodline, let's say he looks white as hell, right? Conor McGregor, right? For example. But let's say if you go back through his father's lineage, you're gonna more likely, if you find a so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, right, in his father's bloodline, right, through the male lineage, then that makes that man an Israelite. Okay, and this is why it's really difficult to comprehend, because the thing is, you got to understand that that this is more than just a color thing, right? This is more than the shade of your skin, right? This has to do with the lineage of your father, right? Like I just read in Isaiah that in doing so, in the Lord removing the covering cast over all the people, he has to first explain how the rules work, right? First of all, knowing that we had an original identity. Everybody upon the earth today had an original ancestral biblical identity, okay? For you Negro, Latino, Native Americans, you guys, at once, you were all one people, and we were known as the Israelites. Other people, like, for example, the so-called Chinese people, right? When you get into their ancestral identity, they were known as the Moabites in the Bible, the Caucasian race. And when I say the Caucasians are Edomites, okay? Now, there may be white people who you think are white that are not Caucasians, okay? Like Italians. People who come from Italian that may look white, they're not Caucasian. They're actually either from the nation of Kittim, or they're from some other places, right? People with my skin tone, right? From Mexico, right? Some people would think I'm a Caucasian, right? Not really, but, you know, there's some Mexicans who are from Mexico who have, you know, green eyes, blue eyes, blonde hair. Sometimes they say, hey, those are Caucasians, but they're not, right? Because again, their father's lineage goes back to so-called Mexican, and if you go all the way back, they go back to a native Indian, right? That was basically whose seed line has been diluted just because of the intermixing with our conquerors, okay? Yeah, of course, man. Occupy till I come. You know, hey, brother, you know, listen to the things I'm saying, but you're right. Even among the Asians, there's differences like Japanese, Korean, and Filipinos, and that's true, right? But we're not here to talk about the different mingling. But for example, the Asians predominantly, they go back to the line of Japhet, the older Asian nations, right? And the newer Asian nations, China and Japanese, they are at Moab and Ammon, okay? And when you get into the Koreans, the Koreans are actually a mixture between Ammon and Moab, right? However, they're basically Moabites that were conquered by the Japanese, which is why when you get into the North Korea, the reason why they reverence Kim Jong-il is because he comes from the lineage of the sun god, right? Because these Japanese believe that they are descendants of the sun god, okay? But that's ultimately, you know, the mixing of those seeds. But again, we're not going to get into that. And hey, brother, I'm going to put you on a timeout real quick. Actually, you know what? Just chill. I'm not going to put you on a timeout, but just listen, right? Because we're digressing. I don't want to get into these other nations. I want to get into the filtering of the seed line of Israel, okay? And we're going to talk about that. So again, sorry for digressing. Thank you for that information, brother. But hey, let's just chill and just talk about the nation of Israel and the filtering of our seed line and how we became who we are today. So again, so to get back on your train of thought, yes, not every white person is an Israelite, and on the opposite side, not every Black, Negro, and Latino is an Israelite, and excuse me, not every white person is an Edomite, right? You're gonna find, because we're gonna also get into the parable of the sower or of the wheat and tare, excuse me, and you're gonna find out that there's gonna be a lot of false people amongst us, man. A lot of tares amongst the seed, okay? And that is all part of the plan, because ultimately the Lord is going to filter out this seed line, this basically separate the wheat from the tares, the goat from the sheep, okay? Now, let's go ahead and get to where it started, right? Because out of those 18 nations that the Bible refers to today, which we go into and we hold up, right? It all starts with the 13 original nations, okay? And from Genesis, after Genesis 10, that's where the 13 nations turn into the 18 nations, right? That's what the majority of the story of Genesis is, for the most part, okay? But we're going to go and just read that. So let's start with Genesis 10 and 1. We're going to read the whole thing. Actually, yeah, 10 and 1. So it says, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? Because you got to remember that, you see, the 8 people that survived Noah's flood, right? These were all people who come from a previous world civilization, right? This previous world civilization were known as the Adamites, right? Secular history, science calls them different people. You've heard them called the Lemurians, the Atlanteans, the, whatever. All these different past ancient societies, these lost civilizations, those are the Adamites, okay? And from these people, this past world civilization was ultimately destroyed, right? If you look at the Hiawatha crater in, I think it's Iceland, you'll see they actually discovered this huge crater that just devastated this previous world civilization, and which caused the Ice Age, which we all hear about, right? We all know that funny cartoon Ice Age that they made multiple movies. Well, that's actually true, right? The Ice Age came through and was a result of these asteroids hitting the Earth and devastating this world civilization, right? And killing off a mass of the people. Now, what happened is that from these people that survived, these Ice Age cave people, right? Which they weren't really cave; they were just people who were taken back to a very simple stage of life. This happened over hundreds of years, right? You had a lot of people who were people like us, right? They had technology, but again, the technology back in those days were different. It was with frequencies, and it was a different type of advancement. Now, ultimately, what happened is they got destroyed. All the people of knowledge, the people who had all these resources, all these people were either destroyed because they lived on the coast, or they were in places where they couldn't survive, right? A lot of people today, you'd put them out in the wilderness. Let's say electricity was to go, you'd have a lot of people who helped run the society who would die off. They wouldn't know how to make their own, get their own food, how to make their own heat. They wouldn't be able to survive in the harsher environment, just like back then. Yep, exactly. The Lord did a reset back then, and then again during the flood of Noah. Okay. Well, my point being, as you just read, man, these are the generations of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Right. These are the 3 sons of Noah that the world of today comes of. So everybody in the world today comes from these 3 people. Okay. And that image that I just showed you with those 18 nations, that is how the Lord divided those people up, right? Primarily in those 3 categories, okay? Now, the promised seed line ultimately went down through the line of Shem, right? Shem, which his Hebrew name means name, his line was a chosen line, and from him come other nations, okay? So let's go and continue reading. And unto them were the sons born after the flood, right? So after the Ice Age came, you had Adam. The Lord, he chose Adam. He chose Adam, and then he ultimately picked Eve out of these Adamites, these people who were living amongst the world at that time in this survival state. Well, he chose them and he placed them eastward in Eden. Eden meaning paradise, right? And basically Eden is the world, right? Well, he placed them in the east, which is basically Israel today, right? In that area, where basically the mountains and all that area right there. Well, that's where the Garden of Eden was, okay? Well, what happened is from these people, Adam and Eve, come the seed line, Cain and Abel, Seth, Enoch, Lamech, and then ultimately Noah, right? Now you got to remember, these chosen people, they weren't the only people upon the earth. You had other people, right? You had the survivors of the Adamites, right? So if you go back to that movie, of Noah, where what was his name? The guy who came out in Gladiator, where he plays Noah, right? And they have those rock fallen angels. Well, that movie was bugged out, but it did have some truth, right? Some of the truths that they actually showed is that there were other people living amongst Noah and all stuff, and these weren't people that came from Adam and Eve, right? Some of them did, right? Because again, remember Cain, he separated and he had his own children, right? But amongst the children of Cain were also the other remnants, the people who came from who survived and came from this previous world civilization, right? They were there. Ultimately, that's where the serpent, right, in the Garden of Eden, which was ultimately the progenitor of the people that you would know today as the so-called white people, come from. Okay, those are the people who taught Eve that astrology, that wickedness, right? From the knowledge of good and evil, right? This is where all that stuff comes from. This is why you got to be really careful about getting into frequencies, getting into astrology and all that type of stuff. Because again, yes, it comes from that old world, lifestyle, that old world civilization where they had the tree of life and the flower of life and all that stuff. But you got to understand that was all without having the proper understanding of it. It is very easy to delve into wickedness. But again, I don't want to digress. But that's ultimately the people who were upon the face of the earth, which, like it tells you here, right? They were the sons born after the flood. Now, like the brother said, right? The Lord did a reset. Well, just like the Lord did a reset when he destroyed the previous world civilization and put them into that state back into the Stone Age, he did another reset once humanity got to a certain point, right? To the point where the Lord chose Noah. Because what did the Bible say? That the Lord chose Noah because he was perfect in his generations, right? Generations goes back to Genos, right? And it goes back to basically the seed line, right? So the Lord chose Noah because in his seed line he was perfect, okay? And not only that, but he was a righteous man, right? So let's continue. It says, verse 2, the sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Madai and Joan and Tubal and Meshach and Tyrus, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz and Riphath, Togarmah, and the sons of Joan, Elash and Tarshish, Kittim and Dodanam. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations, right? Nations meaning their gene line, right? And the sons of Ham. The sons of Ham, so this were the people that you would know today as the so-called the true Africans, right? The people who dwell predominantly in the African continent, right? These would be people like the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the true Africans, right? When you hear about like what's his name? I forgot. He's like a really dark basketball player, and he goes like this and stuff. I forgot, man. Mutombo or whatever. But those people, those are the real people, like the Sudanese. Those are the true Hamites, right? Those people are the people who descend from Ham. Continuing. And of the sons of Ham, Cush, right? Cush is where the Babylonians come from. Also the Ethiopians come out of that line. And Mizraim, which is where the Egyptians come out of. And Put and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah and Sabbath. Saptah and Ramah and Saptaka. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. See, there's that name right there. Real quick, Nimrod comes out of Cush, showing you that the Ethiopians, ultimately, these were the original Babylonians back then, right? Or they come from that seed line. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. And it is cold. It is sprinkling, and you know when you get really cold out here, your hands get numb and stuff, and they're hard to move. That's what's going on right now, man. It's lucky. So he became a mighty hunter before the Lord, right? Meaning that he would hunt other men, he would capture them, to basically make them his slaves, with his indoctrinations, that type of stuff, right? Okay. It says, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh Shai, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babal, right? Babal is ultimately the place that you know today as Babylon, right? And ultimately, Babal goes back to the word confusion, right? Because the place that Nimrod. The winds are getting crazy right now. Give me just a moment. Man, I might have to get some heavier things out here. I try to go light. It's lucky. It's been raining like crazy. It's raining actually right now. So, like I was saying, plug this back in. So, like I was saying, Babal, today you would know Babal, the physical location as Iraq, right? That was ancient Babylon, or the kingdom of Nimrod. Now, ultimately, Babylon today, right, the spiritual Babylon would be America, right, which is Babylon the Great, right, the mother of all harlots. Now, that's for the most part, that's actually, let's get back into that. Okay, and let me skip down to the parts that say, talk about the other nations real quick. And it says, SEEDLINE, right? This is Genesis 10 and 21. And unto Shem, also the father of all the children of Eber. Eber is where you get that name Hebrew from. That's where that comes from. The brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born, the children of Shem. Elam, who you would know today as the so-called Indians, right? The Eastern Indians, the Iranians, the Afghanistan, right? Those people make up Elam, right? And Ashur would be like the Assyrians, like the people over in Georgia, those type of people. And Arphaxad and Lud and Aram. And right here, out of those children, the Lord, he chose Arphaxad, okay? And that right there is where the line of the seed line was again purified, right? It was filtered once again through another generation, right? The Lord didn't choose, he didn't choose Elam, he didn't choose Asher, or Ashur, excuse me, or Lud, or Aram. Aram would be like those, like the people up there, like in northern Syria, right? Basically over there in the Levant, like the older Arab nations and stuff like that, right? Not the newer Arab like Ishmael and those type of people, right? But the point being is that the Lord filtered the seed line again, and he filtered it with by choosing Arphaxad, okay? And let's continue. And it says, and the children of Aram, actually let's go down, we'll skip all these other nations. These other nations, see, this is why when you read the Bible, you got to understand the Bible is ultimately, it's a book of genealogy, right? It's a book of filtering of a bloodline, a certain particular people, a chosen people, right? and when you understand that, then the Bible starts making a lot more sense, right? The Lord doesn't love everybody, like what you've been hearing the brothers go into on that one group who's out there saying God loves everybody. No, look, God may love his whole creation, but the Lord has chosen a particular group over another, right? He has chosen a nation over other nations, right? And that's what we're going to get into today, right? So let's go ahead and you know what? That's about enough of that, right? Because again, I don't want to go ahead and get into like every other heathen nation, because again, it's not about ultimately finding out who these other nations are. But what I want to do is I want to try to go through and show how these 13 nations that we just got into, which Genesis 10 talks about, how there is a growing up of more nations up until 18. And ultimately, the Lord always chooses one particular sibling over another, right? Hence, in doing this, he actually filters out the seed line. So the next thing, so now that the world is at 13 nations at this part in the Bible in Genesis 10, let's go and jump to Genesis 16 and 15, which actually talks about when the next bloodline was actually, or the next nation was created, right? That being, let's see, I wonder if any of you brothers actually know who was the first person to be born. Let's see. There it goes. This is the 14th nation to come into the existence of the world. We're going to read it right now. This is Genesis 16 and 15. This is Genesis 16 and 15. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai, thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai. Oh, I'm sorry. 16 and 15. This is Genesis 16 and 15. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. Right? That right there is the birth of the 14th nation upon the world. Okay? Now Ishmael, when you get into who Ishmael is, he was of the seed of Abraham. Okay? He did come down that lineage of Seth, Noah, Shem, Arphaxad, and you go down, it goes to Terah, and then Abram, right? Our father Abraham, and then Abraham had a son. His name was Ishmael. And as you just read, Ishmael came from a bondwoman, a slave woman, who was an Egyptian. Her name was Hagar, right? And Hagar was a gift given to Abram from the Egyptian Pharaoh, I believe. When he went into the land with Sarai, he was given a handmaiden, right? Hagar, right? And Hagar was the handmaiden to Sarai, right? She was a bondwoman, and ultimately, if you know the story, Sarai being at an age where she believed she could no longer give seed unto Abraham, or Abram at that time, she told Abram to sleep, to lie with her servant, and that child would then be her child, and then Abram's child, right? Back in the day, that's how people used to actually conduct themselves, man. There's old Victorian movies that I've seen where you had helpers actually become like the carrier, because the older woman of the house couldn't have children anymore, right? But that child would be raised as the child of the owner of the house, and also the lady of the house. So this right here is simply the same type of story, the same type of ritual, or not ritual, the same type of customs that talks about. Okay, so that right there is the 14th nation, who today Ishmael and his 12 princes that the Lord blessed them with in this current time, in this disposition of time. Those people would be people that you would know today as the so-called Arabs, right? The United States of Emirates, who else would it be? Yemen, right? You got the right now it's mind is drawing a blank as far as the different Arab nations, right? You know, the Egyptians today, right? For example, the Egyptians today are a mixture of the Arabs and the Hamites that used to be the Egyptians, right? Mizraim, right? Because again, Ishmael has spread over throughout all that peninsula and all over into the northern parts of Africa, okay? But Ishmael are the Arabs, right? So you have all the Arabs out here, you know, talking about Islam and the Quran and Muhammad. See, those people are not the chosen seed line, right? The Lord did not choose Ishmael, right? Ishmael was born of a blessed seed line, right, from Abraham, but the Lord did not choose him, okay? That's why the scripture, I think it's in Hebrews or it's in the New Testament, says that the seed, that there's only one seed line that's blessed out of Abraham, not seeds, okay? So let's continue. So that right there is the 14. So let's get into the next two nations that came on, and that would be in Genesis 19, and let's see. Genesis 19 and 30. This is Genesis 19 and 30. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his two daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drunk, drink wine, and we will lie with him, and we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father, let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lay with him, and we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine with that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not that she lay down, nor when she arose. Let's see, slot me up now. I'm trying to have my Bible not get wet here. Let's see. Verse 36. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. That right there is your 15th nation upon the earth. Those are the so-called Chinese people today, right? And all the other Asian nations which come of the Chinese race. The Koreans, the Mongolians, and there's a bunch of other Asian nations which descend out of the seed line of Moab. Okay, so just like the brother said, right, that there's a lot of different Asian nations, right? And again, remember, that has to happen because remember, today we have 197 nations which the UN recognizes, which all come from these 18 nations which are in the Bible, which we're reading about. But let's continue. Verse 38. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon until this day. Right? And there you go. That right there is the 16th nation upon the face of the earth today. That being the so-called Japanese race and all the other Asian nations which come of the Japanese race, right? Or the Ammonite race. Okay? People like the Thailand and all these different nations, right? So that's the thing, man. You have all these. Man, it's gonna be raining this whole time. So actually, let me bring this umbrella out and stuff. Only problem is that it's windy as hell, but hey, fucking bitch. And of course, let's see. Never mind. It's too windy out here, so what happens is by having an umbrella, it's gonna just blow away, man. And I don't got enough hands to hold the camera, cover the book, and hold down this sign and stuff. But it doesn't matter either way. This is the things we have to go through to preach the word. You know, rain or shine. You know, in season, out of season, as it tells you in the scriptures. Man, this is the things we got to do. So next, let's get into the next. Well, you know what, Salaki. So that right there, like I had just said, man, that was the 16th nation upon the earth, right? The next nation are the last two nations which would create the world, right? And that right there can be found in Genesis 25 and 22, right? So, but before we get into that, and we find out who the last, the 17th and the 18th nation is, let's just talk about what we just read about, right? You had the Lord right now create the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th nation. Now the Lord, in doing so, in bringing forth these children, he actually was testing, right? In with Lot and Abraham, the Lord chose to go with Abraham instead of Lot. Now, from Lot ultimately comes to different nations. Did the Lord choose them? No. The Lord did not choose the Chinese. He did not choose the Japanese or the other nations which come from them. Hence, the Lord filtered out that seed line, right? He filtered them out of the game. With that being said, the seed line he had chosen had gone to Abraham. Abraham had a child, Ishmael. Did the Lord choose him? He did not, right? The Lord told Abraham that he would ultimately bear another child, a child which would hold the promise, which would get which would be of the chosen seed line, right? That the Lord would bless. And who was this that Abraham had? That was Isaac, right? Who, if you're in the know, you understand that Isaac was the earlier incarnation of the one who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Okay, that was an earlier vessel, I guess you could say, of the Messiah, right? Before he came to the world in his form as the Messiah, as Yahweh, named Yahweh Shai. Okay, well, let's go ahead and read about the 17th and 18th nation. That can be found in Genesis 25 and 22. It says, actually, we're going to start at 20. So this is Genesis 25 and 20. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian of Padam Aram, the sister of Laban the Syrian, right? And Isaac entreated Yahweh Bashim Shai for his wife because she was barren, and Yahweh Bashim Shai was entreated of him. And Rebekah, his wife, conceived, and the children struggled together within her. And she said, "If it be so, why am I thus?" Right? She was asking, man. She's all, if Isaac is such this blessed man, if from him is going to come a promised seed line, why is all this commotion going on? Why are these children fighting in my stomach? Well, first of all, she probably didn't even know she had twins. She just knew that there was pains in her stomach, right? Well, she goes and she wants to find out why this is happening, right? Let's continue reading. It says, and she went to inquire of Yahweh B'Shem Yashai, and Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. So you see, so the Lord revealed to Rebecca that she was pregnant with two children, right? And then it was revealed unto her that she did have twins, right? And she understood that there was a prophecy that the younger would, that the elder shall serve the younger. Okay? So all these things came to pass, all because the Lord was ultimately filtering that seed line. Right? Now, these 2 nations which were born, or these 2 children which were born, would be named Isaac and Esau and Jacob. Let's continue to read. It says, verse 25, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. Right? That right there is the 17th nation upon the earth today. That right there is the nation of Edom, or who the people that you would call today the so-called Caucasian race, right? The so-called white people, right? That is the 17th nation upon the earth. Let's continue. This is Genesis 25 and 26. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob, and Isaac was 80 years old, and when she bore them. Right? So there you go. That is the birth right there of the last nation upon the earth that the Lord recognized. Right? That being the nation of Israel. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk for a little bit, Akim. Where are my hands? Oh, but I'm going to talk a little bit before I get into the scriptures, because I want the rain to go by. So that being said, that was the 18th nation right there, right? It was us Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans when we came onto the scene with our brother, right? The so-called Caucasian race, right? So see, we're actually related that closely, okay? That being said, the Lord ultimately chose, it was time for him to filter the seed line again, right? Now that there was 18 nations upon the earth, and the Lord had already started choosing one sibling over another, he chose Abraham over Lot, right? And he went down through Isaac, and Isaac, he had Esau and Jacob, and it was now time for the Lord to choose. And that blessing, that selection ultimately went to Jacob, right? Or whose name was ultimately changed to Israel, or Yasharallah, right? Yasharal, because the thing is that name means prince of the princes. He prince power, meaning that we are, or that Jacob was the chosen, the prince of Yahweh, right? Meaning that from his seed line, everybody who came after Jacob, Israel, would be of that chosen seed line. And let's go and read what's the importance of us, right? This is Deuteronomy 7 and 6. It says, for thou, and this is talking about us Israelites, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? The people who the Lord chose, right, over the descendants of Esau, or the bloodline of Esau, right? This is Deuteronomy 7 and 6. For thou art a holy people unto Yahweh B'Hashem Shai, thy power, Yahweh B'Hashem Shai, thy power hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Right? So there you go. Right? See, the Lord chose us, and we are the descendants from Jacob. And because of that, we are a special people. We are the people that the Lord has chosen. Right? The Lord, so until this point, the Lord has been choosing one sibling over another, all in an effort to filter his bloodline, to make get that perfect plant, as he says later on, which we'll get into in a bit. And those people were you Negro, Latino, Native Americans, right? Though we are in a low state, we're in captivity to this day, you know, it doesn't matter, because ultimately the Lord has chosen us, and we are these special people the Lord has picked. Let's continue. This is verse 7. Yahweh B'Hashem Shai did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people. But because Yahweh B'Hashem Shai loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath Yahweh B'Hashem Shai brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Right? So that right there is the reason why the Lord chose us, right? Because he made an oath to our forefathers, right? Abraham, Isaac, you know, and the other people who came before him, Adam, Noah, right? All these are forefathers. All these people that you read about in the Bible, starting from Adam, and those people who the Lord chose after that, were the people who the Lord was dealing with, right? And those are our forefathers, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and they're also the forefathers of some other selected nations, depending on bloodline and how you go through. I have a family tree graphic that I made that makes it a little easier to understand. But the thing is that, sorry, Austin, this is cold out here, but you know, I'll uncover my head when I'm talking about the scriptures. But the thing is that the Lord, he ultimately chose us, right? And that's why the Lord chose us, right? Not because we were the biggest of the nations, not because of all these other things, but because the Lord made a promise he made an oath to our forefathers, right? And that oath was to select their seeds, their selected seeds, and that's who we are today, right? That's the process of filtering and what happened with all that. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and talk about, let's see. Let's go ahead and read, because a lot of people like to say, one thing that a lot of people say is, well, you know, God made everybody. Everybody's the child of God, right? Well, that's true. Everybody is the child of God. But you got to understand what, you know, just because everybody comes from Adam, right? Because everybody says, oh, we all come from Adam, we're all one people. Well, that's true. But the thing is, did God choose all the descendants of Adam? No. Did he choose Cain over Abel? He did not, right? The Lord chose Abel, which is why Cain slew him, right? And the Lord then allowed Adam and Eve to have Seth to replace Abel, okay? Well, let's go ahead and read Deuteronomy 32 and 8, which explains this, which explains that it doesn't matter that everybody came. Let's see. This is Deuteronomy 32 and 8. says, when the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, right? So this shows you right here that the Lord separated the sons of Adam, okay? He didn't want us to all come together in a one world order, right? The Lord doesn't see us as one people. The Lord separated us, right? He divided the sons of Adam. He set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel, meaning that the Lord, in all his separations and what he gave to one nation over the other, he did it all according to what was the lot of Israel. Well, basically, he did it all for us, right? The reasons why the nations have what they have today, the reasons why they reign over certain territories and over certain people, is because it's all being done for us Israelites, man, to set us up in a way that the Lord wants us to be set up. Currently, it's to ultimately punish us right now, but that's soon to change. And another thing too, let's go and get this real quick, because a lot of people think, like I had just said earlier, you have those bunch of clowns out there saying God loves everybody, right? But the thing is that's not what the Bible says, man. The Bible says it multiple times that God does not love everybody, man. And one scripture you get in the Old Testament is Isaiah 40, 17, excuse me. Find it real quick. This is Isaiah 40 and 17. Actually, I'm starting at 15. This is Isaiah 40 and 15. Behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket and are counted as the small dust of the balance, right? So, meaning that when you have those balances, you know, when you're weighing certain things, and you know those balances, they'll move up and down. The other nations, to the Lord, he sees them simply as just dust that are on the balances. Nothing worth or heavy enough to make the scales move, right? They're basically nothing. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing, and Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, or Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beasts thereof sufficient for a burnt offering, meaning that these nations can't sacrifice enough to even be considered worthy and stuff like that. It doesn't matter what these other nations would do, even if they sacrifice all the cedars in Lebanon, right? It wouldn't mean nothing to the Lord because it's coming from the other nations, which he doesn't worry about. It goes on. It says, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. Right? So that right there shows you, man, the Lord is not dealing with these other nations in a way where like they actually have anything to say. Lucky, let me go ahead and my battery says it's dying, so there it goes. Have to find a place that has covering next time when it rains, but I thought it was just gonna be sprinkling today, but it isn't. But whatever, man. You do the work because we gotta feed the flock. So again, like I was saying, the scriptures make it very clear that the Lord is not dealing with anybody. And we just read right now in Isaiah 40 and 15 that the Lord, these other nations, the nations which he did not choose already, which he rejected, he considers them less than nothing. They're all vanity, right? And why is that? Because ultimately, the Lord's not here for us or for the other nations. He's here for us, the Israelites, right? All this, everything that you see here, the people, all these people going around that are, if they are not Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, they're simply just background characters filling up the world and basically just using up space for now. Right now, of course, they're doing things. They're doing things to to accomplish the will of the Lord, right? In this current time right now, they're being our overseers, right? They're the ones who are oppressing us Negroes and Latinos and Native Americans, right? This is why ultimately the Lord made the Edomites, for example, right, to be the hammer upon the earth, to punish us Israelites, and to take us into captivity and to take us down, right? And these other nations, they've all basically have jumped upon that and have now taken that on, right? Well, let's go ahead and let's see. Let's get Psalms. Let's do this. Let's get Psalms 2 and 1. Because one thing too about these other nations, right? All these other nations upon the earth, recently, within these last few centuries, everybody has been deceived. They've been led to believe that the God of the Bible is dealing with everybody upon the face of the earth, right? And why is that? Well, because Satan, he had a job to do. He had a job to deceive the nations, and he was going to do it by his people, the Edomites, right? And why did he do this? Well, because he needed all the people to come together. So he needed to present himself as, like it says, like an angel of light. He needed to present himself as their savior, right? This is why when people today, they talk about Jesus Christ or God loves everybody, God doesn't want you bullying people and all that. They're not talking about the God of the Bible, Yahweh. They're actually talking about Satan, right? The brother, the Natzakba, did an amazing video, man, where he revealed, you know, he brought some beautiful points talking about how the God that the Christians worship is actually Satan, and that's true, man. See, that Jesus, that white Jesus Christ that everybody worships, his name, that image goes back to a man that lived in the 1400s named Cesare Borgia, right? But you gotta understand that Cesare Borgia was simply standing in for an image, right? But the ideas, the doctrine, the philosophy which has gone into the Messiah of the church today, those beliefs, those features actually go back to the original Antichrist, right? Which was Nimrod, right? And all that type of stuff. This is where you get the virgin birth from. This is where you get all these other wicked stuff from. Is because it's all a veneration of the old idols, right? Nimrod, it ultimately goes back to Satan, okay? That's why people, Christians today, they're really Satan worshipers, man. And that's about it, man. But let's go and read this, because ultimately these other heathen nations of the world, if they haven't been deceived into thinking that God is for them, they've been complacent in making sure that they are over us, right? Because why? Because they think that they're going to inherit this world, that they're going to have us Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in subjection for the rest of existence. But that's not what's going on, says the Bible, right? This is Psalms 2:1. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? What is that vain thing? That vain thing is that God is for everybody, that God loves all the people of the world, that God is for all nations. Well, I just read the scriptures, some scriptures, and there are a lot more scriptures that I had, but I'm not going to go into them right now, man. I'm just going to try to go through this and get the points, right? But some of those vain things is that the Lord is for everybody, right? But it's very clear that the Lord is not for everybody, right? The Lord chose certain people over another, all in the effort to filter the seed line of his chosen people, right? Now, continuing, the other things that these heathens have done, the raging that they're doing is, the raging that these devils are doing is building up the empire that's around us today, right? They have assisted the nation of Edom. They've assisted the nation of Edom. they've assisted the nation of Edom in building up this new Babylon the Great, right? And in keeping us in subjection, right? When you look at all, for example, the 7-Elevens, man, it's all Ishmael in there, man, or Elam, excuse me, right? When you go into like the merchant places, it's all Persia or Iranians in there, man, you know, or Arabs, right? So all these other nations of the world have all come together to join forces with Esau to keep us in subjection, to make us their servants, right? That's what that scripture talks about. There's a scripture that says that the dogs come past and lick my wounds. That right there is talking about how these other nations are basically getting rich off of the backs of us Israelites here in our captivity, man. The Chinese selling us a fucking cats and raccoons, right? You know, when you go into our neighborhoods, it's not us Latinos, Native Americans, man. Like for example, right here, that milk Altadena there, man, right in prime Issacharite city, man, here in Cali Mesa. That shit's owned by a bunch of Arabs, right? But who goes there, man? Nothing but Issacharite, man, and some Judites, right? Because this is the condition that we're in, man. That our enemies that we would be in the land of our captivity, serving our enemies, right? And our enemies are every one of the other nations out there, okay? So let's go read. Let's continue reading. It says, verse 2, the kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against Yahweh Bashim Yashai and against the anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth, and that's exactly what's happened, man. You see, the people who are in rulership today, they're actually really the servants. They're really the other nations that should be serving the Israelites, man. But what have they done? They've decided to come together to cast our bands off of them and the chains off of them, man. Because they should, like under King Solomon, they were under service to us, okay? But today they're ruling. They've managed to come up and bring us down, okay? It says, verse 4, he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, Yahweh B'Hashem Yashai shall have them in derision. And that's exactly ultimately what's going to happen, man. See, the Lord is ultimately going to throw a monkey wrench first and foremost into Esau's plan, right? And in doing so, he's going to cause the plans of all these other nations to be devastated, man, right? When he starts striking this land and striking the empire of the Edomites, man, you're going to start seeing all these other nations start to moan and groan that they're no longer making money off here in America, off of the American money system, man, right? Remember when this whole pandemic started and they started closing down businesses? You kept hearing nothing about. Well, I kept hearing a lot of these businesses going out of business because there was no more. They couldn't afford to stay in business. But who was really being affected? Was it you Negro, Latino, Native American? To a certain extent it was, but the majority of the businesses that were affected were of the business owners who tend to be Moabites, Ammonites, Persians, Elamites, all those people, right? See, when the Lord, it starts to afflict these Edomites and these other heathens, we're now starting to see it. And eventually, down the road, the Lord's going to ultimately devastate them, man. He's going to take this empire in power right now and destroy it and cast down all the kingdoms, right? What does it say? When the Lord comes, he's, tell what is it? I seen until the thrones were cast down and the Most High did sit. See, all the thrones being cast down are upon all the other empires upon the face of the earth today that belong to these other other nations out there, man, right? Because even though right now they're raging, they're building up their empires, they're imagining vain things, that their kingdoms are going to go on forever. The Lord is going to laugh at them, man, because He has a plan, and it's actually playing out in front of our eyes today, right? There's a saying that says, if you want to make the Lord laugh, you tell Him what your plans are, right? And that's exactly what's going on, man. The Lord will laugh when these Edomites, you know, when He destroys their plans of ruling forever, of going into space and doing all these different things, man. That shit ain't gonna happen, right? So I'm just reading through my notes real quick, Aki. I'm trying to see which ones. But yeah, let's go ahead and see, because besides these devils coming together and raging and imagining vain things, at one point, you know, they all came together and brought us down as a nation. And they all were confederate with each other, and they kept up this big charade where nobody tells us who we are, right? Even though, you know, there's videos out there of some random, you know, Arabs or so-called Jewish people or the true Africans out there saying, oh yeah, you Negroes, you Latinos, you Native Americans, you are the Israelites. Oh yeah, you guys are the Hebrews. But nobody really tells us on a level like that where we would know. So let's go ahead and read this. This is Psalms 83:1. Keep not thy silence, O power, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Right? So right here, those people who hate the Lord are these other nations, the nations who have been rejected by the Lord because He did not choose them. Right? So what's going on? They've lifted up their head. They've decided to stand up and come against the Lord. Now, how are they going to do that? Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Right? So you see, these people, these other nations, they've taken crafty counsel, which means they've consulted, you know, tons of witches and you know, all people of renown, you know, people who would know how to bring forward a scheme that would destroy us as a people, man. One perfect example of that is the Lynch letters, man. You know, Willie Lynch. That's crafty counsel, man, and that's wickedness. It tells you how you could perpetually, or how you could keep people in a slave-like state perpetually, right? Willie Lynch himself said that the only way that the so-called Negroes could get out of the slavery that his techniques would put them into was by an act of God, right? And that's exactly what's happening right now, man. It's an act of God that is waking us Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans up, okay? To get around that crafty counsel that was set up around us. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And they did that, right? This is why you Negro, Latino, Native Americans call yourselves by those names today. You call yourselves Canadian, American, Mexican, Salvadorian, Argentinian, Brazilian, Peruvian, Honduran, Indian, Apache, right? All these different names. You Israelites your identity has been cut off. Like, but again, this is all. Not only was it was it because of these nations who did it, but it was because of the will of the Lord, according to Jeremiah 17:4, that said that even thyself shall discontinue from thine heritage, which I gave thee. Right, meaning that the Lord would cause us Israelites to lose our true heritage. Right? Because why? Because we went against them. We rebelled against the Lord, and He used these other nations to basically to punish us, okay? And this is how he did it, right? He made these nations rise up against us and ultimately seek crafty counsel so that way they could make our name no longer be in existence. Now, yes, there is a nation out there calling themselves the Israelis who are dwelling in our land today. But the thing is those aren't the real Israelis. Those aren't the real Israelites. You Negro, Latino, Native Americans, you're the true Israelites. You're the people of the Bible, right? And those people in the land of Israel today are the imposters pretending to be you, okay? But the great thing is that the world is starting to wake up, and they're starting to realize that they're not, that the people over there, the Israelis, that they're not the true Jews, right? And that they're basically starting to turn on them, right? Just I think it was yesterday, you had some politician from Ireland come out and condemn basically the Ireland Senate, I guess you could say, right? I think they have another name for it, but I forgot. But the thing is he was out there condemning them for putting sanctions upon Putin for attacking the Ukrainians, right? Saying that what he has done is no different than what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians, right? He was showing the hypocrisy of that cabinet, how they're willing to put extreme sanctions on Putin for just barely starting a war and doing certain things, when the nation of Israel, the so-called Jews, right, the Amalekites or these Edomites, they truly are, when they've been doing abominable, heinous things to the Ishmaelites, the Palestinians, right? Well, why is that? Well, that's because ultimately they're the true leaders of the world right now, man. Ain't nobody gonna tell them what they can't do and who they can't kill, right? Because the Lord gave this world into their hands, man, right? Hence Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Let's get back to this. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. So they're confederate, meaning they're all one. All these other nations have decided to all be of one mind, right? And that mindset is to destroy the Israelites and set up another people in their place to call themselves the Israelites. And that's what happened, right? Everybody knows who we are. Everybody knows that the Indians are the lost 10 tribes. People know there's records showing that the Latinos, we were the Israelites who came over here, right? There's records showing that people believe that the blacks are the so-called Israelites as well, but nobody is taking any action against it. And why is that? Because nobody wants that truth to come to light, because they don't want the status quo of the world today to change, right? Everybody's enjoying the ride that their ancestors set up, which is what we're just reading right now, right? It says the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites and Moab and the Hagarenes, who are the Arabs, Gabal, which is a Edom nation, and Ammon, Japanese, and Amalek, another Edomite nation, and the Philistines, the Hamites, and the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also is joined onto them. They have helped the children of Lot, Salah. So this shows you, man, all these other nations, man, they've all come together, all to destroy us, okay? It says, let's see, and we're ultimately in that condition today, man. We've been cut off. We've lost our true identity for the most part, but now the Lord is actually bringing that back to us now, man. But this is ultimately, again, is just part of the plan, because the Lord ultimately had to punish us for going off, which is explained here in Deuteronomy 28 and 40, 28 and 48, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahweh Bashim Shai shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. All right, and that's what's going on today, man. The Lord has put us in a state of captivity where we're serving our enemies till this day, man. The Lord has done a marvelous work, man. He has made us in accomplishing what was referred to as the great falling away, right? Us Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, we have fallen away, right? We've gone through paths which bear no water, man, right? Which bear no fruit, and that's ultimately because we were subjugated onto our captors till this day. Us Latinos, we have the last names of our conquerors, man. You know, the Lopez's, the Diaz, Hernandez, all these Latino last names, man, they're not our last names. These are all names of our conquerors that we bear till this day. And it's the same thing with the Southern Kingdom brothers, man, the so-called Negroes, man. The Smith, the Jackson, all these names, man, they're not their names. They're the names of their plantation owners, the owners that had bought them, okay, that they bear till this day. But this is ultimately just some of the curses that ultimately would fall upon us, man, because of how wicked we were, and ultimately how we didn't follow the rules of the Lord, and basically which made all the filtering of the seed line that the Lord did account for nothing, right? Because the Lord did all that work and we didn't appreciate it, right? We started to serve other gods. We decided to go other ways. So what does the Lord do? He put us into slavery under our enemies, and our enemies have a cruel way of treating us, right? There's a scripture that tells you how our enemies actually treat us till this day, right? This is Wisdom of Solomon 15 and 12. Let's see. But they counted our life a pastime and our time here a market for gain, right? So all these people who have us in captivity, that own all these buildings, who own our debt, who own all these banks, who basically have power over us, they count our time here as a market for gain, a way to come up, right? And when you look at, you know, a lot of organizations, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of things that are supposed to be out there to help you, a lot of them, man, are really just, they're Ponzi schemes, man, right? Like what's one thing? There's recently there's like homeless shelters. Homeless shelters, for example, were ways. You got a fucking Prius over here, fucking burning out and shit, man. Ain't fucking going anywhere. But so the point being is, what I was trying to say is that you have homeless shelters, right? They're supposed to be made to help out, you know, the poor, right? Namely, our people, kind of like this poor man over here, right? But the thing is when you get into the homeless shelters, you start finding out that there's a whole corrupt group, corporation behind some of the biggest homeless shelters in Los Angeles, and also all over California, and I think they even have other places where they're raking in millions of dollars, and they are not helping people, man. They've been taken to court, and it goes that way for all these different organizations, right? And that's just because this place is not set up to help us. It's set up to fleece us, man, to basically make money off of us, okay? And that's just the way that life is in Babylon the Great, man. So let's continue. But they counted our life as a pastime, and our time here a market for gain. For say they, we must be getting every way, though it be by evil means, right? And that's ultimately what the lifestyle and what life is here in Babylon the Great under our captivity, man. Yeah, you have some Negro, Latino, and Native Americans out there who may have it a little nicer than others, but as a whole, as as a people, we have been taken advantage of, right, by the people who are our appointed leaders, right, who ultimately descend from our captors. Okay, that's the truth of it, man. See, this is all part of the punishment we're going through, all because of the filtering of that seed line that the Lord did, man. These other nations who have been rejected, they're in their current heaven right now. This is their heaven, okay? At one point in time in history, every nation had a chance to rule, right? The Persians, they ruled during the time of Daniel, right? Right now is the current time where the Edomites get to rule, okay? The Moabites ruled back in the day, right? And all these other nations, like I said, had a time to rule and had a time where they had us Israelites in captivity, okay? But the great news is we are now in our last captivity, right? The captivity which is under the current so-called white man, which is going to be the last captivity we are in before the second coming of the Messiah, which when he comes, we're then going to be put into co-rulership with the Messiah, right, in his kingdom. This is Baruch 3 and 8. Yet, let's see, this is Baruch 3 and 8. Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments according to all the iniquities of our fathers which departed from Yahweh B'Shem Shai, our power. Right? So in the time of Baruch, we were in captivity in those days, and we are in captivity till this day. Okay? And we are subject unto payments. Right? Which is why we have to, not only do we have to pay for water to come into our house, we have to pay to, have it go out of our house, man. When you pay for sewage and all that stuff, man. It's crazy, man. They got you coming and going, right? This is why you pay tax on your paycheck, but then you also pay tax on the shit you buy, right? Because they got you coming and going, right? Because these are the ways that they get us by evil means. Verse 9, hear Israel, the commandments of life. Give ear to understand wisdom. How happeneth it, Israel, that thou art in thine enemy's land, that thou art waxen old in a strange country, that thou art defiled with the dead, that thou art counted with them that go down into the grave. Thou hast forsaken the fountain of wisdom. For if thou hadst walked in the ways of God, thou shouldst have dwelt in peace forever. Right? Well, that's why, man. You see, because we decided to rebel and go against the Lord, that's why we are now in the land of our captors, man, which is why we are, to this day, going down to the grave, being counted amongst the dead, right? We are the valley of dried bones, right? Our people in whole, right? Some of us have woken up, so kahala Yahweh for that. But the thing is that en masse, our people are still asleep. And that's just the way that the Lord wants it right now, man. So, but the thing is that this isn't going to be forever, because again, when you see the things of the world right now, the news, the prophecies that are playing out in front of our eyes, this proves, right, with the wars, the pandemic, the mass awakening of the Negro, Latino, Native Americans, right? This proves that we are at the end, right? This is 2 Ezra 9 and 15. I have said before and now do speak, and will speak it also thereafter, that there be many more of them which perish than of them which shall be saved, right? And that's ultimately right there, getting back into filtering the seed line. You see? Now, in this case here, this is talking about how there's going to be a lot of people in the world in general that are going to be killed off, right? And also 2/3 of our people, meaning 2 out of every 3 Negro, Latino, Native Americans will die off before the second coming of the Messiah, right? Or not die off before, but will die off before the new heaven on earth comes in, right? Before the new kingdom is established. So the thing is, people like that guy right there are gonna be destroyed and put to death, right? Because they have not walked in the ways of the Lord. They have not understood what is really going on. They think that I really want to just be out here in the fucking rain and reading the Bible to nobody and stuff like that. A lot of people think that this is just a game. They don't realize that. What does it say? That there be many more of them which perish than of them which shall be saved. See, so guys like that are going to perish, right? And only very few people are going to be saved because they're going to realize what I'm saying is the truth, right? Verse 16, like as a wave is greater than a drop, and he answered me, saying, like as the field is, so is also the seed. As the flowers be, such are the colors also. Such as the workman is, such also is the work. And as the husbandman is himself, so is his husbandry also. For it was the time of the world. And you see that? So this is the time, that is, for, what does it say? For it was the time of the world, right? So in the time of the world, which is what we're living in right now, all these things must come to pass. All these people must be created. And why is that? Because ultimately that seed line of us Israelites, we had to die, come back again, die, come back, rinse, repeat, until we are now in the state which we are in now, which the Lord saw it fit to bless us and wake us up, right? But he's only going to do that to 1/3 of our people, meaning 1 out of every 3 Negro, Latino, Native Americans are going to wake up, are going to finally achieve that point where the cleansing of the seed line has cleansed them, so where they could finally be chosen. Right now, they ultimately were chosen from the foundation, but there was a certain set process which they had, which we, Lord willing, we had to go through to partake in the salvation that's going to come to the 1/3 of Israel. Okay, continuing. Verse 18, and now when I prepared the world which was not yet made, even for them to dwell in that now live, no man spake against me. Right? So you see everything going on from all the nations coming and being destroyed, the Lord raising them up and putting them down, the nations all coming one at their time. All that was done as a plan, right? So the Lord, like you said, man, when the Lord made the world, so he could do exactly what's going on right now. Salaki Akim, it is hard to have a clear mindset when it's freaking cold right now, right? So sorry, that's why I'm stuttering. And okay, verse 19, and then everyone obeyed, but now the manners of them which are created in this world that is made are corrupted by a perpetual seed, and by a law which is unsearchable, rid themselves. So I considered the world, and behold, there was peril because of the devices that were come into it, right? So not only, has the seed of this world, has it now corrupted itself, right? But it is perpetually corrupted and destroyed because of the doctrines and the belief that goes on in this world, man, where these people believe all these alternative lifestyle is the right path and all these things, right? People are destroyed, right? But the good thing is that ultimately the Lord has created and he has fostered and nurtured a particular seed line, that being the nation of Israel, Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and out of that seed line, a particular vine, right? A group within that group, right? The Israel of Israel, right? Like it tells you in scripture, man, not all that are of Israel, right? The Israel of the Lord is the 1/3, meaning that one out of every 3 Negro, Latino, Native Americans, which are going to wake up and understand that the Bible is the truth, right? These are going to be your individuals who have that livelier spirit on them. The people who are more attached to reality, who tend to be more connected to the truth, right? Because they understand what's going on. Because they've been given those eyes to see and that mind to understand. It says, verse 21, and I saw, and this is the point about the perfecting of that seed line. Verse 21, and I saw and spared it greatly, and have kept me a grape of a cluster and a plant of a great people. Right? So you see, out of the great multitude of like, if you had a cluster of grapes, the Lord only chose one grape, right? And this is talking about the 1/3 of the Israelites, okay? Verse 22, let the multitude perish, then which was born in vain, and let my grape be kept, and my plants, for with great labor have I made it perfect, right? And what was that great labor? Well, it's the subject of this lesson today, man. The filtering of the seed line, right? The Lord, since the time of Adam, he has done mighty works, right? He has done mighty works to filter that seed line, to choose a particular person over another because of their traits, because of what what the Lord's seen within them, right? Because what does the scripture say? That the Lord doesn't look upon the outside of a man, he looketh upon the inside, right? So the thing is that the Lord, in his choosing in his criteria, he chose a particular group of people. And within that group of people who come from others that were chosen before him, come a peculiar group within that group, which we refer to as the elect, right? The 1 out of every 3 Negro, Latino, Native Americans, plus the 144,000 people that the Lord would choose to come back and teach our people and wake them up. Okay. So let's get this. This is Matthew 13 and 18. Because one thing too we need to understand is that the Lord, now the Lord is going to do even more filtering of the seed line when he comes back within the nation of Israel, okay? And why is that? Well, it kind of goes to what that brother said earlier in this lesson, that not all white people are white people or Edomites, right? And and what I said back to him, not all Black, Latinos, and Native Americans are Israelites, right? Because along with the chosen seed line, the perfected seed line that was created with great work, so comes the destruction of that seed line, right? And how does that destruction happen? Well, we're gonna get into it in just a bit, but let's read this, and maybe you'll get an idea, and I'll expand upon it. This is Matthew 13 and Matthew's 25 to 31. Block it out too. This is Matthew's 25 to 31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, right? Meaning when Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, comes back in his UFOs, when you're going to see the whole sky full of chariots, or UFOs is what they're referred to today. This is what's going to happen. And all the holy angels with him, right? Those are the UFOs. Then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations. Okay, so everybody in the world, all the 18 nations upon the world, right? Or the 197 nations if you want to go with what the UN recognizes. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another. Right? That's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm telling you people who these 18 nations are. Right? Me and the other brothers out there have been telling people who the biblical nations have been, where they've come from, where they are today. Okay? This is the separating, this is a form of separation that the Lord is doing, right? This is spiritually how he's doing it, but when he comes, he's going to physically do it. He shall, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, and inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. Okay? And that's ultimately what's going on. The Lord is going to, when he shows up on the scene, he's going to take that perfected seed line, and he's going to separate us from the other nations. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of people who are going to look Chinese, going to look Japanese, they're going to look Arab, they're going to look like so-called Jews. But these are going to actually be Israelites whose father's lineage goes back to those bloodlines, right? And this is how the Lord is going to separate the sheep, which are the Israelites, from the goats, which are the other heathen nations, right? The tares. Now, let's actually get this real quick. Where is it? Wheat and tares. Slakiakia. Let's get Matthew 13 and 24. Because besides the Lord separating us out of the other heathen nations, like, how did we get put into that? How did us Israelites end up amongst these other nations looking like them? Well, because you see, there has been a diluting or a defiling attempt of the seed line, right? Of what the Lord calls the field, right? And he has a parable called the parable of the wheat and the tares, which, let's read it right now. It's a beautiful scripture. This is Matthew 13 and 24. Another parable put he unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. Right? That good seed is the work that the Most High did in separating us Israelites from the other nations, right? From choosing one son over the other, one nation over the other, right? And ultimately, like how he went to Abraham, he said, hey, from your line, from your seed will come this chosen people, right? And we know that to be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And all the seed line that comes after Jacob, right? That's that chosen people. That's the good seed that was sown. Okay, verse 25. But while the man slept, his enemy came and sowed tares amongst the wheat, and went his way. And when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of the harvest I will say unto the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Another. So there you go. See, so that right there was the parable, and right now we're going to read the part where the Lord explains what those are, right? So let's get down to this, and jump down to 36. Then Yahushua sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man, Yahushua, right? The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, right? That's you Negro, Latino, Native Americans. The enemy that sowed them is the devil, right? Who is the devil, right? The devil is a word for deceiver, which we know ultimately it's these Edomites, but it could be any of the other nations out there, man. But namely, it's these Edomites. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burnt in the fire, so shall it be in the end of the world. And the Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So you see, so ultimately, when the Lord comes back, he's going to separate not only us Israelites, out of the other 18 or 17 nations upon the earth, right? Meaning that he's going to pull Israelites out of the Chinese, the Japanese, all the other nations, and they're going to look like these other nations, right? But not only is he going to do that, but he's going to pull the tares out from amongst the wheat. So you're going to have people that are going to look like so-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, and so-called Native American Indians, but he's going to reject them, because ultimately their seed line, their father's seed line, goes back to an Edomite or a Moabite or something else, right? But they've been hanging out amongst us this whole time. Like a perfect example of this, I believe, is Jesse Lee Peterson, man. When you look at him, he looks like a so-called Negro, but his spirit completely says Edomite, man. So that's the truth. That's what's going to ultimately happen when the Lord gets back here, man. So, that being said, let's see. Let's get let's get this. This is Isaiah 65 and 9. This is Isaiah 65 and 9. And I will bring forth a seed out of Jacob, and out of Judah an inheritor of my mountains. And mine elect shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there. So you see, so all this work, all this diligent, great work that the Lord did to filter out that seed line that he wanted to create his chosen people, he's going to bring forth somebody out of the tribe of Judah, right? Or out of Jacob, who we know is Yahushua, that he's going to set up over the mountains, right? The mountains being the governmental power, right? The leadership of the nation of Israel, right? We would consider the government of Israel, right? And Messiah, Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, will be set up over us, and he's going to help us and we're going to help him rule the world, right? Maintaining the laws of the Lord, right? So that shows you right there, man, that the Lord is bringing forth this seed line, right? And what are we going to inherit? Well, it tells you that or who's going to inherit this? Well, it said the elect, right? It says, and mine elect shall inherit it. Well, who are the elect? Well, like I had just said, the elect are a peculiar people amongst the nation of Israel, right? So if you were to take the whole group of Israel, all the Negro, Latino, Native Americans, one out of every three of those people would be part of this elect. They would be chosen by the Lord because of who they were. The Lord chose them, right? And this is confirmed here in Romans 11:7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Showing you that that the elect, the 1/3 of Israel plus 144,000, we're going to gain something that the rest of the people out here aren't going to see. That there's going to be a lot of people out here, like I read in 2nd Ezra, there's going to be more people who perish than are saved. Right? These people who are going to die off are not going to obtain what this small group of Israelites are going to achieve, right? And what is that? Well, it tells you here. Let's see, let's get Zephaniah 3:20. It is hard to change pages when your hands are freezing. This is Zephaniah 3:20. It says, This is Zephaniah 3:20. At that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, for I will make you a name and a praise amongst all people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith Yahweh Bashim al-Shai. So that's what's going to happen, man. So that's going to happen to all the nation of Israel, but primarily the 1/3 elect and the 144,000 are going to be the ones who are going to notice this, who are going to understand what's happening and are going to reap the benefits of it, right? And what is the benefits? Well, let's read it. And to read this, we got to go all the way to the back of the Bible, right? Verse 21, verse 7. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his power, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and the murderers and the whoremongers and the sorcerers and the idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, right? That's going to be the destruction that's going to be here in America and over there in like where the NATO region is at, where the Lord's going to cause this nuclear war 3, to basically finish that, man. We're going to have America that's going to be all on fire, and it's going to look like a lake of fire, right? That's where these people are going to end up at. And there, verse 9, and there came unto me one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show thee the bride and the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, right? That meaning like this. Well, actually, let's read. And showed me this great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto the stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and here's the point, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. You see that? So for the elect, and that have obtained it, and have gone through all of history from, before Adam and Eve to this day, and ultimately to the point when the Lord comes back, and he takes up the elect, the 144,000 plus the 1/3 of Israel. He takes them up to the chariots to save them out of the destruction that's going to come. And when they come back, they're going to come back as that holy city, New Jerusalem, and they are going to inherit the world. The meek shall inherit the world. That's where that comes from, man. And that is what it all means, man. To have the filtering of that seed line, right, is to be made into a perfected being, right? So that way you can now be in rulership with the Messiah. So that right there is what is at stake there, people. This is what we're doing this for, right? So hopefully this video was edifying, Akim. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up because I'm here at my 2 hours, right? And it's cold and it looks like it's about to rain a little bit. So, but hopefully this video was edifying, Akim. So next time I want to start off, or I want to give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakol Kodash, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakol Kodash. So, till the next time, Akim, I'll catch you brothers later. Shalom.